Alright, so today I'm going to be here taking a look at a scenario where Brazil goes and forms their own empire. So, right away, what they're going to do is they're going to go invade French Guiana, Suriname, and I forget, the one that was controlled by Netherlands back when. So, Brazilian troops will start pushing into the south of Suriname and all of them. And it'll be because they would just want to make it go quicker. They would have sent an ultimatum to all three, but only French Guiana would have accepted. So Brazil is going to be like extremely buffed, as if they're like the same strength as like China in this scenario, even though they already are pretty strong. But their troops would swiftly take it out. And then now their empire is done. Just kidding. No, that would be a horrible video. Well, they would then focus their troops down to Paraguay. Brazilian troops would work into Paraguay and cutting along the coast onto that border with Bolivia. After kind of annexing out this, there'd be an alliance formed, but between two nations, and I'll quickly color them in. They'll be the same shade of color. So there's going to be an alliance formed between Bolivia, Paraguay, and Uruguay. And they're all going to instantly declare war on Brazil. Well, Brazil will swiftly finish out invading Paraguay and will only be fighting a two-front war. So this will actually be really bad for them since they'll have like such a long front. Here, since they'll be there, they'll relocate their troops, a chunk of their troops, to the south of Bolivia. They'll slowly wrap themselves around Bolivia. Then other forces will they will have also sent forces around to the north where there was Bolivian expansion going up extremely slowly. But Bolivia would start losing pretty badly because they'd used to control this, so this would kind of be their second biggest loss. So they're gonna start swarming in and attempt to split Bolivia in two to try to divide the nation so that one part of the nation might just completely crumble. Well, that would be pretty successful, as this part of it would just say we're gonna join. Meanwhile, down in Uruguay, their troops would start making it in. But then, since Uruguay would have lost all of their land, they would just surrender, calling it peace and just saying, yeah, you can fully annex us. The Bolivians wouldn't want to, but would be encouraged by the now annexed Uruguay to do so, and I'll just quickly drop the peace treaty. So those three chunks of Bolivia would go ahead, and actually not all three. So it would go out as really like this. Brazil would get these two over here. Oh, just give me one sec. So they annexed out two of the three provinces. And then this last province, they, in the peace treaty, said, we just want that province to become like a puppet state to us. Just as kind of what was I saying? Okay, just kind of like what's that called? Just kind of a buffer between them and Bolivia a bit, just in case Bolivia got mad, just so that when Bolivia, or if Bolivia would ever invade them, they would have to go through that puppet state who would be heavily funded. And so yeah, that is not all. Then the Brazilians would see that, okay, yeah, we're pretty big right now, because if you look, they have a small little puppet state. They stretch pretty largely. Well, before they would decide to send some expeditioners to try to get some land in Africa, like in this area, because their expedition, they were told that they'd want to like kind of gain like, not really a colony, I guess. They would want all this land in Africa, and they would have heard about that. So then they go and then they're pushed down a bit, but yeah. So they would arrive in, I'm pretty sure, Equatorial Guinea, and would send an ultimatum to them, Cameroon, and a few other nations. And these guys would all accept. Oh, also Burundi and Rwanda would. But wait, let me quickly just do something. So just so that it's not like they don't start with more land than they did. Burundi and Rwanda would potentially, but they wouldn't end up not. But as they're expeditioning and their militaries out here in Cameroon and the Central African Republic, they would realize that Bolivia down here would have started invading their puppet and would have gained full control over this bit of land. The Bolivians would start moving north, and then would try to kind of form like a greater Bolivia, like a greater-ish Bolivia. And it would stretch down pretty far, though, and would gain up to that land, as now they've lost a huge chunk, which would make the Central African Republic feel, oh, they're not that scary, and would try to hold off more. African nations would be afraid. They would not be able to stop out here because of just a lot of African nations and just having naval fleets surrounding that area, just saying no. So then they would recruit a little chunk of their population, which would just roughly the same size as Bolivia's Bolivia's army. And Bolivia's army would be getting put up a good fight with. But this war would last roughly a year, and they would start falling and blah blah blah. The Bolivians would get like crunched down so much, and this time their army just would say, yeah, no, we ain't letting you live. And now they're even bigger. I would say they would invade down into Argentina, but I don't really want to do that. Then in Cameroon, they would gain Cameroon and would tell Niger to accept this ultimatum, and they would help them grow a bit. So they would accept that ultimatum, and then they would say, yeah, we'll help you expand outward. So then they would tell Nigeria that they'll help them expand if they become their puppet state. And obviously they would accept. So they would expand them into like Benin, Togo, and Ghana. And they would stop at the edge of Ivory Coast because they would have gotten pretty large. Then they would try to fund separation movements in Chad, and they would get like a chunk of southern Chad to come out. They would also get like other chunks like here. As Chad's fighting in the north, they would go in and swoop in to the south. Oh, wait a minute. They would swoop into the south with their with a bit of their army, because this is a very new nation and it's unstable. They would be able to swoop in and take it out like in like a matter of days. So now they've kind of established a little bit of a colony in Africa. they would either want to go after the guys out in the Democratic Republic of Congo to touch Burundi and Rwanda, but instead they would attempt to purchase a small piece of land. They would attempt to purchase like this chunk of land away. Yeah, that border isn't the nicest, but I'm just trying to use a mouse here. That'll be fine, I guess. I think I could use the mouse for like the invasions, maybe. But they would attempt to purchase that, but wouldn't be successful. So instead, they would just go and invade them. And instead of just going for those chunks of land, what they would do is they would even stretch it a teeny bit further before calling out for a peace deal. Oh, come on. And the peace deal would not be accepted. And that would really be what it gets to. Because they would be like, they'd want to expand, but they'd know they wouldn't want to annoy any other forces. Oh, shucks. But they would end their empire at this height. So, in the comments, tell me what you think about this empire and say, like, I know it's not realistic, but tell me what nation I should do next, please. Goodbye.